Freedom. Freedom. Freedom over fame. Freedom over cycle stays the same.
New York.
Every time.
Unique New York.
It's good.
Okay. All right. In
3, 2, 1. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hello. It's us.
We're both coming off of a sickness that has been going around. So if our voices are extra raspy or nasally, I am so sorry for that.
I'm not sorry sickness happens, but that is why we sound different if we do sound different. Yeah, they're calling it like the 30-day cough.
I refuse.
If anybody out there has fallen victim to this phlegmy monster, my sympathies, my condolences for your poor lungs and what used to be easy breathing. No, thanks for joining us on this episode. We are going to be tackling the color purple. So that is an important book written by Alice Walker, and it's set in the 20th century in rural Georgia. I'm sure that we've all heard of this book before. There's been a movie made of it.
There's
twice
been several
now.
more.
Yeah, it's a musical. It's, I believe, a Broadway musical as well. So it's gone live. It's hit in the theaters right now. It's been around for a minute. It's not new. Big takeaways from this just right out the gate is it was pretty dark there in the beginning. There's pretty, I wouldn't say super vivid abuse, but there's enough of a picture painted of abuse that it was a little unsettling to read. I'd say in the first, I want to say like at least the first 40 letters, because it's written in letter format. So the main character, her name is Celie, and she's a young African-American girl.
So I didn't know this, but there's a name for that when it's written in letter format. It's called epistolary. It's an epistolary novel.
Epistolary.
Meaning that it's like in letter format, exactly how it's written. So it's written in 1982. I thought this was really noteworthy. We've heard about this book. I've known about this book since I was a little kid, but I actually never read it and I never watched any of the movies.
This was my first time reading it too.
So going into reading it this time, or for the first time, I was nervous and excited and I didn't really know what to expect, but I knew that it was dark. I knew going in it was dark. It really took me by surprise how dark it was from the jump. And to Gina's point, it's not super vivid. There's not play-by-play of what's happening, but it's really clear from the jump that there's abuse going on. So the book covers a lot of abuse. So trigger warning for anyone who doesn't want to listen to that today. If you're not in the mind space for it, if you want to come back a different day, please do. I actually started reading the book and took about 2 weeks off before continuing to listen and read as I was going through, because the initial talks of abuse, there's different types of abuse that happen, but the initial type of abuse that we're talking about is sexual abuse, like a little kid, like a young girl. And it was really hard to listen to. So if that's not something that you can do today, then we love you and hope you can come back and listen a different day. But yeah, it's an epistolary novel and it was released in 1982. And by 1993, it had won a Pulitzer Prize for fiction. It actually made Alice Walker the first Black woman in history to win that prize.
That's crazy to be the first Black woman to win that prize, because that was not that long ago.
No.
It was a year before I was born.
It was about 40 years ago now.
Yeah, which I guess can sound like a lot, but it's not.
I can attest to that.
I can attest
so
that
young.
it's a super young, super short period of time where you're barely on this earth.
You've barely come awake.
Yeah.
In that time, not a lot has happened for us.
It's basically you're a toddler, essentially.
Really?
Yeah. So
A baby.
just a small little baby angel running around the world, not knowing what to do.
Right. No, so it was a big deal from the minute it came out. It's been a big deal. And as you were saying, there's been a lot of versions of it. I think it was Steven Spielberg did one, right? That was the original
first one. Yeah, that Oprah was in it and Whoopi Goldberg, the queen herself.
I never saw it. And then there have been like 4 Broadway renditions.
There's been 2 movies. The second one was released on Christmas, and it is in a musical format, leaning more towards the Broadway.
So there have been 3. The 1985 film, the musical that came out in 2005. And then in 2008, the BBC Radio did a radio adaptation.
Radio?
And then...
I wonder what that was like.
And then it says in 2018, Warner Brothers announced that they would be releasing the new film adaptation, which is, I think, the one that we just saw. So
we did think it was the perfect time to read this book because it was coming out on Christmas, and we went and saw it, I believe, a few days after Christmas.
Facts. Facts, no printer.
There's facts, no printer. I want to really focus on how the book, affected us, because I believe that the inspiration for all of the movies and the musicals did come from this really strong piece of literature. But I will say that the movie has had good reviews from everything that I've read, which I support the good reviews. There was definitely some drama with the woman who played Suge Avery.
And the production company.
And I didn't know about that.
Was it the production? It's Oprah. Is she producing it? She's doing something. Hold on.
So
I want to get into that, but I want to
not now.
Not now.
Okay. So we'll circle back around to the movie because, again, like I said, I wanted to focus more on the book, though I know the movie that was released is important. But again, it all stems from the book, and we all know how transference of literature into movies sometimes a lot of things can get lost, and no matter how good of a director you are, there's no way you can fit all those details into a movie.
Also, I want to give a special shout out to something that I read as I was getting ready for today. Just a little side note, on the Wikipedia page for The Color Purple, because I do just a little bit of background work, at the very bottom it says, and I'm going to read this directly, as part of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, the author, Walker, declined publication of the book in Israel in 2012. The decision was criticized by Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, who argued that Walker resorted to bigotry and censorship against Hebrew-speaking readers of her writings. Walker, an ardent pro-Palestinian activist, in a letter to Yadot Books, accused Israel of an apartheid and demanded change in policies before her works can be published there. Yes.
I didn't read that. That's the first I'm hearing of it, but fucking... she's a legend for that, as far as I'm concerned.
I love to see it. We obviously talked about Palestine a couple months ago when we did PS for Palestine, and we haven't really addressed it since then, but we're on day 83 now, 83 of continuous bombing in Gaza. Fuck the Israeli government. Honestly, fuck the U.S. government for all the shit that they're doing, trying to censor, trying to make boycotts illegal. If you guys are not paying attention, this is not the day for it. We're not going to really get into it, but honestly, the fact that the Israeli government has the U.S. government by the balls in the way that it does, super troubling to me. I don't know what it means. I honestly have not had the emotional bandwidth to do it, but we're still fucking watching. Fucking yes to Starbucks losing $11 million in the last 3 months. Fuck yes.
Yeah, that's just...
fuck the U.S. government for trying to make boycotts illegal. Fuck them for tying them to financial aid, housing help, any kind of other help that you could need. Honestly, fuck them for that, because that's some bullshit. And we love to see independent people who are doing their part to bring attention to the problems that have been happening in Palestine for 75 years. And I love this for her. I loved seeing this section.
Yeah, we're recording on January 1st. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So the shit's still going on, and we're not going to dwell on it right now. If it continues, we will address this again in another podcast to its own, because it deserves it. There's no end in sight. I've never been more fucking disgusted to be an American right now.
Disgusted.
Literally disgusted. This is the most embarrassing. It's gross.
Disappointed, disillusioned, fucking eyes open to this shit.
Just nasty.
I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
I keep saying I don't want to get into it, and then
we do want to get into it, but we don't want to take away from her work right now. Just throwing it out there. Free Palestine. No hate against Israelites themselves.
And this is the part. Anytime someone says, fuck the Israeli government, or there should be freedom in Palestine, or calling attention to the fact that it is in fact an apartheid, there was the the dean of, I think it was Harvard, and it was like 2 other Ivy League colleges. And they basically refused to say that pro-Palestinian protesters on their campus were participating in hate speech. So they were interviewed. I don't remember I want to say it was for something important. They basically had to go and defend themselves. And they were like, no, we refuse to say that this is anti-Semitic speech.
This is not.
Because it's not. And I honestly feel like, I know we've all for sure heard about the Mandela effect and just how weird things can be, or like the cornucopia,
the fruit of the loom,
all the shit. But this is a different level of what I feel like is that it feels like the universe is trying to gaslight.
Yeah,
because I'm like, okay, if I go, my neighbor fucked me over, fuck that guy, and someone's like, you want to bomb the whole building? Bitch, right. That's not what I said.
No, it's like...
That's a bad example.
Well, it's something to the effect of, oh, my neighbor is being a prick to me. They're seeking me out. They're complaining against me. Nothing's happening. And then that neighbor happens to be a white guy. And then you go, oh, now you're racist. Now you hate all white people?
How is it by going, hey, we don't want to die anymore. Can someone stop bombing us? Hey, it would be nice if you stopped killing the over 40% population of children. That would be cool. Hey, don't fucking bomb hospitals that you've proven don't actually have quote unquote terrorist organizations operating out of them. And literally not a word was spoken about Israelis or Jewish people. And they go, ugh, anti-Semitism.
Right.
You want us to stop bombing? Anti-Semitism.
You know, something really deep and dark and gross is going on if they're making policies to back that action. So yes, if you boycott, which how the fuck are you going to tell me that I can't boycott something? That's literally my God-given. If I don't want to drink the grossest coffee ever by a huge conglomerate that not only supports the genocide, but also supports Monsanto, which we'll get into that another day. But I've been a long time hater of Starbucks, and this is just another little fucking cookie on the crumble. If you're going to try to do weird shit, making laws or passing policies that are making things automatically anti-Semitic, when we're just sitting there going, hey, why don't you stop fucking killing people that are innocent? Go after Hamas, stop fucking killing babies. Then you have to know that this is the biggest gaslight I think that the American people we're experiencing publicly.
And it's like we're keeping each other sane.
Right.
Like I feel
I'm not
like
fucking crazy, right?
It sometimes feels, and maybe this is different for everyone, and I've heard different in the worst scenario because my workplace is pretty inclusive and I'm really lucky to have people around me who some are really engaged with it. I'm really lucky to have some people who are really engaged with it and some people who like are neutral or don't really address it, right? So I at least have some people in my office that will talk to me about it and we'll be like, this is wild, right? We're all collectively, okay, good. We're all collectively experiencing this. And I've heard of people who are in workplaces that are like pretending like nothing's happening.
I was in one
You
of
were.
those workplaces.
Yeah.
I just recently switched jobs. So yeah,
It's so weird to experience because I can't shake the feeling that if we didn't have each other on the internet, if we didn't have a way to communicate freely, what would this world be like? They would completely brush this under the rug.
they did the same shit with Vietnam. And they did the same shit in Iraq. We just didn't have people with phones on them
That's true.
going. Like, it's forever. Ever since America has been a thing, we've been being gaslit into thinking that every single war we went to was valuable and what we were the good guys. That's
Who
just
was
not
it? We were at a friend's house for Christmas,
Mhm.
and she had a niece there who's about 18 years old, just going to college for the first time. And she was like talking to us about, oh my God, I didn't realize this and things that she's learning in college. And we were both, yeah, just be ready to learn that a lot of the things that you've learned are untrue.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. And just this, I'm going to wrap this up after this statement, but when we do posts specifically on PS for Palestine, on our YouTube specifically, we got a good amount of pushback from pro-Israeli people. And again, I want to throw out there that if you've listened to that podcast, we are not anti-Semitic, or it's not about that. It's about stop killing the innocent. That's what it's about.
Advocating for one group is not a call to death to the other.
Right. So
it's just not.
They are, in fact, and can be, and usually are mutually exclusive. We got a lot of pushback there, and I'm not here to be confrontational, but a lot of the things that people were saying were, and I've heard this from others as well, that were like, you guys are advocating for Palestine, but if you were to go over to Gaza, you'd be looking at second class because you're a woman, like all these things, like, and I'm like, okay, again, these things are mutually exclusive. I can call out to save people's lives whom are innocent, whom are children, who have nothing to do with this war. And there's no like wool over my eyes as to the problems within that situation in and of itself.
Whatever
that
it might
culture,
be.
like we all have it. Again, fucking America is an asshole, and we've historically been an asshole. That doesn't mean I hate America, but that means I know that we're an asshole. You know what I mean? Same shit. I know that there's problems over in the Middle East. I know that Palestine has its own issue. I know that. That doesn't mean that I can't say, stop killing innocent lives. So anybody who saw anything like that on our TikTok or on our YouTube, I don't assume that any of our listeners are the people that, engaged with us in that way. But if you read those comments, if you see those things on our page, just know that it doesn't rile us up. It's something we expected with this podcast, that we're going to have a bit of controversy.
It's true.
Yeah. But feel free to interact with us if you'd like to.
If you want to boost us the other way, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I'd love more engagement that's more positive and like-minded. But either way, we're happy to be here. So again, free Palestine. Let's circle back to Alice Walker, who's obviously a badass.
Fucking badass.
And her voice that was not heard in that way until recently, because most of us had no idea of the injustices that were going on over there. She's obviously a hero.
Circle back and bring us to the content of this podcast, which is banned books. We'll just get straight into it. The American Library Association placed The Color Purple as one of the top 100 banned and challenged books in the United States, basically from 1990 all the way through, as of this citation on Wikipedia, to 2019. But I'm sure it's still one of the most cited books for banning. The common reasons are sexual explicitness, explicit language, violence, and homosexuality.
Homosexuality.
Homo. What did I say?
I don't know. It was a hard O.
Homosexuality.
Some people are like homosexuality. You're like homosexuality. These are two separate words.
I'm having trouble breathing out of my nose. So I'm running out of air towards the end of sentences.
Well, luckily, homosexuality has not been affected.
Good.
All right. So
And we can confirm that there is definitely sexual explicitness, explicit language, violence, abuse, and homosexuality.
which I'm going to guarantee you right now, if there wasn't homosexuality, and what we're referring to is the relationship between Celie and Suge, which I was.
It was the biggest surprise to me.
I was so excited. Color me lesbian, but I was fucking jazzed that the main character was in a homosexual relationship.
Okay, I'm not addressing the movie version, movie adaptation, musicals, whatever. I loved this book. It was a really hard start because we immediately go into, now that we've given the warning, I'm just going to start talking, okay? We immediately go into the Celie character, and she is writing letters to God and basically telling us how she's getting raped by her dad, who she thinks is her dad at the time. And we later find out, again, spoiler alert if you haven't read the book, we later find out he was not her dad, he was her stepdad. But
she has 2 kids by him.
She has 2 kids by him.
Under the age of 18.
She's really young.
And then he just takes the babies off into the night and she doesn't know what happens to them.
Right. So it was a really hard start. Even as the book progresses and we meet her and her sister, Nettie, who is such a lifeline. And I really I thought it was the coolest thing that we go through, I would say, like a third of the book before we even hear from Nettie at all.
Oh, I thought that her character was over.
I thought her character was long gone. And then we come back around and so they get separated at some point because Celie gets basically sold off into child sex slavery.
Yeah, in the form of, quote, marriage.
To Mr. who is super abusive. And he has such a fun character arc. The character development, all of the characters is chef's kiss.
It was, the author led you down the complexities of every single character, their growth, and over almost a whole lifespan. The book ends when they're over middle-aged, I believe.
For sure.
And the twists, the turns, the things that you didn't specifically expect. What was your favorite character?
Suge. But I feel like that's like super obvious.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
I don't know. Anyway, so back to Nettie though. Okay. So they get separated and Nettie ends up getting hit on. We'll say hit on for a nice way to say it, by Mr. She rejects him.
It was pretty grapey.
And so she gets kicked out because she had run to him because their stepdad had tried to abuse her after Celie leaves. Then she goes to Mr.'s house to go with Celie, and then he tries it. So she goes. She ends up somehow finding fucking Celie's kids, joining this family.
In Africa.
No, they're not in Africa when she finds them.
But
she ends up somehow.
She figures it out in Africa.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think she knew.
No, I'm pretty positive she was in Africa, and the lady that she was hanging out with was, hey, why do my children look like your face? Right. I think.
I think she knew before they went to Africa.
Well, they
didn't tell her. They didn't tell the wife.
Okay.
But it's just like twists and turns. You got to read the book, guys. You got to read it because it's honestly so well written. It's great. It's super captivating. You go through these in and outs of different characters' lives, their different perspectives. As Jeanna was saying, we follow them through their entire life. And we get to see everyone's flaws and everyone's redemption arcs and their humanness and their downfalls. Hot?
Yeah.
I made tea. She didn't let it cool off.
Here's your baby tea, and now I have no taste buds. All right, I'll give that another hour or 4.
Just take the top off.
No, it's scary around the equipment.
Okay, give it to me.
It's all right. I'll work it out over here in my own zone. Don't worry.
See?
Yeah. Adri's got a thing where she likes to eat things that are scalding and drink things that are scalding, and she literally burns
the roof of my mouth every week.
Of her mouth, her taste buds off every week. And
I literally feel the skin come off on the roof of my mouth like once a week.
It's
but
wild.
I like really warm things. If you're drinking tea and you don't feel it as it goes down, what's the point?
I don't know. I feel like I can feel it when it goes down without it incinerating my throat.
Okay, so back to favorite character. So
yes, Will it help if I tell you my favorite character?
Yes, it will.
So I love Suge, obviously. I think Suge's character was genius because she was so sexual, so vivacious, and sexually ambiguous.
Suge felt like, this is such a bad example. You remember the movie Flubber?
Oh my God. Fucking sure. Yeah, I remember Flubber. I never thought I would see the day that I am making a podcast about the color fucking purple and Flubber gets thrown into the fucking mix. Please continue. I do recall the Robin Williams classic Flubber, which is probably his least. For all the Gen Zers out there, you don't have to watch it.
Don't.
It's all right.
It was really good though.
No.
Okay,
it's
fine.
okay at best. Love you. Love you, Robin Williams.
I said that this was a bad example. Okay.
All right. All right, continue. Go for it. Talk to us about Flubber. Seeley, Flubber, tell us how they go together.
I regretted it as soon as I said it.
I laughed so hard it made me dizzy.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
Well, you have to continue. We're dying to know how Flubber and the color purple coincide with each other in history.
Okay. So do you remember the scene where they're like dancing?
No.
The little Flubber pieces like break off and there's like hundreds of them and they're like dancing?
It sounds like that's most of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but go ahead.
In my mind, I remember as a kid being like, that seems like something that would never happen and I could never touch that. Like it felt very whimsical and fun and exciting and vivacious. And in my mind, as I was reading the book, and every time she would come up in the book, she felt like an elusive, like amoeba of some sort that could not be held in your hands. The raw sexuality that is Suge Avery, and then her complexity, her need to be loved, her snarkiness, even when the very first day that she's there and she would not eat until Seeley looked away and wouldn't eat in front of her. Just everything about her. I know that doesn't translate to
No, it sounds exactly like Flubber. Suge Avery and Flubber. There they were. Who would have known? Is it like Hamlet as well? Shit.
I know that it sounds stupid because I'm like, she's so sexual and Flubber is not sexual.
This PG fucking 13 Robin Williams movie is fucking just like fucking Seeley, Suge Avery, and Nettie all combined. Flubber actualizes their essence.
But there was just something so not real about her.
Just so this character is so interesting, how is she real?
And I feel like in 2023 or 2024, we have so much access to everyone so freely. And you can see, especially last year, the fall from grace from a lot of celebrities and just like their way of beingness. And you get to see there is no such character as like a Marilyn Monroe that's super elusive and we don't know the intimate parts of her. Because if Marilyn Monroe were around in 2024, she'd have a fucking Instagram or a TikTok and we would get to see those sides of her.
Right.
Suge to me felt like this, not that she lacked depth, quite the opposite.
She had so much depth.
She had so much depth that she felt unattainable. How are you simultaneously super free and liberated, but also so willing to go back to an Albert? But also, she makes a full mockery of Albert, and he's the same man who has Seeley under his boot. You know what I mean? She just crumbles everything around her by her sheer existence. She is the definition of feminine, divine energy.
Much like the historical Flubber that dances in small
I have so many
particulates
regrets.
around the room.
I have so many regrets.
No, I would like you to bring up Flubber more.
I can't. There's no taking it back either. Like, we can't re-record that part.
No, absolutely. I would never stand for it. We will not do injustice to Flubber that way. Listen, guys, this is not the first time she has brought up Flubber. She has brought it up more than anyone else I've ever met. But it's adorable because
We've never watched it together.
we probably won't.
Why?
All right. If you're feeling adventurous one night, we can watch Flubber. Maybe we'll find a DVD player somewhere. I don't even know if that thing's streaming. Oh, you looked it up.
It is.
She's shaking her head. Yes.
It is.
Yeah, that'll be like a relationship movie where you're like, do me a solid and watch this Flubber. And I'll be like, show. It's just like Shug Avery, so I shall enjoy every moment of it. No, she's brought up Flubber a lot. And you know what the cutest thing is? You can tell me whether I'm right or not. Adri used to watch movies with her mom because her mom is still predominantly Spanish speaking. So most
Controversial. We don't know.
we think,
I have a theory.
We think
my mom
she's
knows
lying
English.
to us. We think she's known English this whole time because sometimes Adri will be at her family's house speaking
In
English with her other members of her family, and her mom will be in the other room chuckling at the jokes right on point. So we'll see. Time will tell. You'll be with us.
I'm on to you, lady.
Yeah.
I don't know if you figured out Apple Podcasts, but I'm on to you.
I don't know if you got Spotify, but here we are. But I think that this might be because I believe Flubber was a Disney movie. So I'm pretty sure it was
Still on Flubber.
I'm pretty sure it translated Spanish, right? Did you watch it with your mom?
I did.
Yeah. So that's why this is more of an adorable thing and less of a random Flubber attachment.
I honestly wish I had never uttered the word Flubber.
Oh, it's my favorite thing that you've ever said while recording. Flubber aside.
Your favorite character.
So like I was saying, I know that Shug is a star character. She is amazing to me. I think the thing that I like the most about Shug is her talks about God. I think that
it's one of, I bookmarked a couple.
Okay, yeah, so we'll talk about that. But honest, Mister is actually my favorite character. So
I was going to get Sophia.
Sophia's a badass, right? But terrible, sad story.
Yeah, so sad.
Lots of gross violence there. I love the fire in her eyes never went out. And so I love Sophia's character. I relate to Sophia's character on some levels, but Mr. had, I think, the strongest character development.
He had the quietest, most well-rounded character development.
Absolutely.
Because we didn't get letters from him or anything like that, but we just got to see through Celie his evolution.
And so I think seeing the evolution of somebody's character growth from the eyes of somebody who was a victim of abuse was a very interesting perspective to look through. Additionally, I feel like we as humans, some of us, really like to compartmentalize the human experience. Okay, this person is good, this person is bad. And I've personally have faced a lot of friction because I don't look at humans in that whole dichotomy. I think dichotomy is the appropriate application to this scenario. So I don't see people as black, as white, and I don't mean that literally, like good, bad, extremes. I see people as like this whole spectrum of color, and sometimes people can be on a whole dark, and I think sometimes people can be on a whole light, but it doesn't even matter if you know a person your whole life, you're never with them every moment, and so you don't know their experience or what influences them. Mr. coming out in the beginning of the book, we all can't stand that guy. He's gross. He has the grossest actions. The only solace that I get is the fact that Shug makes him look like an idiot by having complete control over him sexually. It's
really his life story and his development, and even sometimes when he's not directly in the story that they're telling, but they're still talking about him, when Shug and Celie are talking about him, or even when Sophia and Celie are talking about him, he is the example of what happens when we, without getting too spiritual, but when we as our independent freestanding selves heal our internal wounds. And that's what happens, is that initially he is the oppressor. He's oppressing Celie. He's physically dominating, he's emotionally dominating, he's in every way that he can abusive towards her.
He looks at her like a thing, an animal, if
A
you will.
thing, a servant, a nothing, right? And then her reaction is truly out of survival and acceptance and just timidness. It's a complete defeat. And then we have Shug Avery, who, as you were saying, dominates him sexually, dominates him energetically. Just she doesn't see him as maybe even an equal. And that's her character. She's the person who doesn't, I don't know, see the world as physical. It's all tangible energies that she pulls and manipulates. And that's what I love about her. But in that, in her kind of creating this atmosphere, in her pulling out of Celie her self-worth and teaching her, and we'll get into their relationship because theirs is transformational. But we see all of the characters around him growing. And because of that, because they're not forcing it. They're not like going, you suck, you need to do this, you need to go to therapy. It's not a forceful thing, because of the unavoidable truth that he's left alone because she leaves him. He's forced to reconcile with the hurt and the pain that he's caused. And because of that, he evolves and grows.
Right.
It's really cool.
It's because I think people look at karma in a specific way, like, oh, what you throw out there, you're going to get back. The way I look at karma is not necessarily, if you throw shade at somebody in an abusive way, you might not see that in this lifetime. You know what I mean? But karma to me stands for ways to reconcile your spirit from the things that you've accumulated in this life, and also learning lessons. All right. That's, to me, that's the purpose of life, is to learn lessons, to grow. And if you're not doing that, you will probably have to repeat. And since I am somebody who really values growth, we have to look at his whole story, right? And without saying it's okay for him to be an abusive person, without saying it's okay for him to put somebody down for literal decades in an abusive way and hide, to be so spiteful that you're hiding letters from the one person that Celie loves, which is her sister, for years and years, only to be found decades later that she knows that her sister is alive and well and thriving in Africa. Without saying that's okay, we also have to look at the time period and how Black men were treated, right? We're in the book, transferring over to Sophia. Sophia, really strong character, sturdy woman, strong-minded, fights back, right? She's a strong female character. You've got her being broken down by white people, which is very true to the time period. It was the early 1900s.
Right.
So she gets slapped. She hits a white man back, the mayor. So she gets beat within an inch of her life. And then she goes to jail for 12 years. She goes to jail for 6 years and then has to go work for the people that put her there. So these are the time periods that they're living in. And we don't see Mr.'s life. We don't see what he had to go through. We don't see the abuse that he probably absorbed in his life. And many apologies because I forget who said this, but I was scrolling through TikTok and a very influential Black woman was talking about abuse or abusing your children in the Black community. And she said that abusing your children physically, being very physically abusive, is the most white thing that you can do because it is the thing that controlled Black people for so long. It is the thing that controlled Black people for so long, was violence, right? Violence and taking away their education, like controlling their mind, right? Of course, it's going to trickle down into their lives. It's literally the thing that they were taught is the response to conflict. Theoretically, Mr. is this character who's probably experienced so much in his life just being a Black man, because I feel like Black men to this day don't get appreciated enough for the things that they've gone through. Now, statistically, Black women go through the most, right? Like they have the most abuse. But we can't, that doesn't negate the fact that the race as a whole has gone through a lot for hundreds of years here in America.
Right. And I'm not Black, but as someone who is Mexican, The Mexican community has a similar experience in terms of male dominance over their female counterparts. And so I'll speak to it from that perspective. A lot of the times, the lack of control or power that men have in their life, they take out on the women in their lives.
Oh, for sure.
And this just feels like an extension of that. He has really nothing, and he finds the only person that's going to take it from him.
Well,
And
yeah,
it happens to be this young, just poor girl who gets basically sold to him.
Yeah. So yeah, he was my favorite character in that way.
I love that. I really struggled with if you were going to pick Sophia or him, because I loved him too. And I wanted to pick Celia. I think Celia is like the obvious. The book is her.
The book is Seeley.
But I don't know. And I don't mean this as an insult at all, this as a compliment. Like when people go, I don't know if you've heard this, but people will often say, I'm just a vessel for God to work through. Even though I don't really believe in Christian culture, I do think that God works through people. Like spirit, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, it's in all of us, right?
We are all a part of God.
And so I feel like Celie was just a vessel through which we got to experience all of these complex characters' lives. And she was the tether that held them all together. So I couldn't really pick her. And Shug to me felt so opposite of who I am. And that's why I really loved her so much. She's just like a catalyst, like such an inspiration point. So is Sophia. Even Squeak to some extent, or Mary Agnes. It's very female centric.
And we love that about that, because how many books talk about that time period from a solely female perspective, a solely female.
Like even Harpo, we just feel so bad for him.
Yeah, there were still lots of people in the United States at this time, and these scenarios do happen. Like, again, we can't polarize people. There were guys like Harpo out there who weren't as violent, maybe a little bit more soft-hearted, and that's his story, is not knowing what to do, having a lot of peer pressure from his abusive father, and then that ultimately ruining his relationship with somebody that he truly loved, because the relationship advice that he got from both Mr., who is his dad, and Celie was to beat his wife because she was ornery and she didn't listen to everything that he said.
Yeah.
So she fought back. He got hit, and so did she. And again, ultimately, that ended their relationship, and they ended up separating. So who do you think that your favorite character was? We've talked about the people who you couldn't pick.
Oh, I still think Shug.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's her for sure.
Yeah, because she's so different from who I am. When things go bad, I tend to freeze. We know this about me. So I think in reality, if I were ever put in this kind of dynamic situation time period, I would react like Celie. And I think that's why I gravitate towards Shug. All of the female characters are pretty badass. Even Nettie. Think about how brave that is to be like, okay, my dad's trying to abuse me. My brother-in-law is trying to abuse me. Fuck this. I'm leaving. You want me on a boat to Africa? Let's fucking go. I'm going to live in this little village. It's just brave. It's her being brave. It's from the beginning, we see that she's a very different person than Celie. So I like this little blurb that I read. It says, throughout the book, themes of physical and emotional abuse are prominent. However, the story is also of resilience and liberation. Analyze how Walker uses these themes to highlight the journey from oppression to empowerment, especially in the context of African American experience and women's rights. And I do think all of the characters that surround Celie, she almost feels like a lighthouse, where she's just like attracting these very specific and necessary people into her life and is an observer. And because of the characters around her, it grows within her the want, the need, and the desire to be empowered.
Yeah, so I agree with that to a certain extent. I think that for the majority of the book, that is Celie's role. I think she is the tether that expresses everything that's going on around her. She is very neutral. She does fawn under pressure, under abuse. Like I said, Harpo asked her, like, hey, how can I make my wife listen like you listen to my dad? And her response was, beat her. And
Because
that
she doesn't know another way.
she doesn't know any other way. That's just how she is. You know, it was probably just something to say to
Well,
not
and she
stir
says
the
it,
pot.
I think she was like, I was just jealous.
Yeah. And who wouldn't be in that situation to see somebody who's both strong and independent and will stick up for themselves no matter what, even if that means a fist to the eye. Like the very opposite of who she is. So I agree with you for most of the book. I think that the part where I disagree is after she breaks free of Mister. And then that's when her personal character development almost skyrockets to the point where, to me, reading it was almost like, it's like watching her story was a line, you know, that didn't go up and it didn't go down. It was just the same sad, the same unfortunate thing. And then as soon as her and Suge run off and they go to the city to start doing their own lives, and then she starts making her pants, and then people start liking her pants, and then she becomes very popular. And you see right there, like her life goes from a line to bursting into a rainbow.
And I don't see it like that.
Oh, I totally do.
I mean, I do. I get where you're coming from, where she moves to Memphis and then her life like takes off in a different direction. But it almost feels like tending to a flower. It feels like she's not stuck. Every instance that's happening around her, from the time that Sophia gets hurt by Harpo and she fucks him up, and then Suge coming the first time and staying there, and then her coming back the second time, and then their relationship, and then towards the end, now Suge's back with Mister. And none of that to me feels linear. It all feels like a pouring into and an awakening, like a very slow awakening. But nonetheless, even the time where Squeak is, my name's not Squeak, it's Mary Agnes.
Yeah.
Every one of those moments to me felt like a moment that was giving her permission to explore her femininity, her Black identity, her everything. Even before we meet Suge in the book, you know, everyone talks about her as a whore and like very promiscuous. The loose woman, all kinds of shit like that. And she's...
Just because she didn't want to be married.
Yeah, and she doesn't take her... Like, it's almost like the opposite. Enamored with it a little bit, and she like can't wait to meet her, and she wonders what she looks like in real life, and
she was super turned on by her.
Yeah, and I guess maybe in my mind, because I didn't know I was gay until late, I'm like, no, I get it. She's just fascinated by her. You're like, it's just
she's gay.
Yeah. She's gay. And maybe that's my life too, because to me, it didn't feel like gay love. It felt seeing femininity for the first time.
She does talk specifically about her little bean waking up and her nipples getting hard when she sees Suge. And then every time she's like, I don't want to touch men. Anytime it's ever brought up. And I knew she was gay in, I would say, the first 4 letters because of the way it was written. I was like, oh, they're building this woman up to be a lesbian.
And I didn't get that right away.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, she's going to be a lesbian 100%. And then especially when Suge comes and basically gives her a sexual awakening, that too was a part where I saw a little rainbow in her character development, because that was a big deal.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like the Celie that we meet in letter 1 would not have left to Memphis by letter whatever, you know, that we're at. So she had so much growth throughout that whole first half. Even though she was still at home, even though she was still like under Mister's boot, but even then she was starting to have more freedom, especially because she was leaning so much on Suge.
Right.
And Suge was empowering her in that way.
And to circle back with their discussions about God, that I think really enlightened Celie, changed her life, because I think that when you go... And Celie's not somebody who, they don't ever talk about her going to church. They don't talk about anything like that. We just know from the gate that she's been taught about God, probably from her mother, who ended up having mental illness later on in life. And then I think did she take her own life or did she die? I don't remember that. That was in the beginning.
I don't remember.
She ends up dying, and pretty early in Celie's life. And then she's left with her abusive, what's thought to be father at the time.
So one thing, I don't know if you remember this, but Suge, her dad is actually a minister or pastor, whatever.
So I think that however we learn about God, if it's within an organized religion, it can sometimes be painted in a picture of crime and punishment. And I think that her perspective on God was that classic crime and punishment. And then Shug comes and she opens up a whole spectrum of the way that God loves and who God is and how he loves everyone and their habits and who they are.
Right. Not to like continue in my adoration of Shug.
Is Shug in the room with us right now?
But there is just a fluidity in the way she speaks about God, love, sexuality, expression. And we see it at the end of the book when I think Celie is talking to maybe Sophia, maybe Mary Agnes. It's like one of the last letters in the book. And she almost verbatim says what Shug had said to her halfway through the book. So I actually set it aside because it was like one of the few things that I was like, oh my God, yes.
All right, let's hear it.
So I don't know what letter this is because in the book it's not actually numbered, which is a bummer. Let me see if I can figure it out because I was putting markers throughout so that I could remember where I was. Whatever.
Don't even worry about it. We got time.
So I'm going to go through a couple spots of this letter, but she says, Dear Nettie, I don't write to God no more. I write to you. What happened to God? Asked Shug. Who's that? I said. She looked at me serious. Big a devil is you, I say, and not worried about no God, surely. She said, wait a minute, hold on just a minute there. Just because I didn't harass it like some people us know, don't mean I ain't got no religion. And so they go into, it's like a full section of basically her giving her analysis, her idea, and what her interpretation of God and religion is. And at one point she says to her, it ain't something you can look at apart from anything else, including yourself. I believe God is everything, said Shug. Everything that is or ever was or will ever be. And when you can feel that and be happy to feel that, you found it.
Nice.
It's way longer than that. And then they start talking about sex and in relation to God. And she said, God made it. Listen, God loves everything you love and a mess of stuff you don't. But more than everything else, God loves admiration. They're talking about the flowers, sex, love, life. And then it's this complete releasing of whatever idea we have of God.
And the crime and punishment.
Right, the concept of a white dude in the clouds, the concept of someone is sitting and judging you and just condemning you for everything that you are or are not. And instead of that, she's going, look at the flowers around us. Look at the sun. Look at God is everywhere. God is in all the goodness. If he didn't want us to feel that, he wouldn't let us feel that. That to me, I think was like solidifying my love for Shug. Because up until then, she'd been painted as a little bit of a floozy. But when you know the why behind her character, and because she's just going, I'm just loving my life and loving myself and loving God through everything I am and being alive the most alive way I can be, then that's a different person. That's not a floozy. That's just repressed people who are scared of freedom. And she is like the beacon of freedom and liberation.
And I think the characters that we've historically named floozy or loose or things like that, or personalities that are even called that in life in general, I think most of those people are just free thinkers. That they don't subscribe to the rules that some other people do, maybe the majority of society at that time, or maybe they're within their own religious confines. And I'm not saying that every person out there who's living a different lifestyle that's a little less structured is, some big free thinker, but I do think that there's something to that. Any person who is not living the way that they've been indoctrinated to live. And when I say things like that, I'm saying like, okay, we all went to school 5 days a week, had the weekend off, and then we transferred into our jobs 5 days a week, 2 days off if you're lucky, and do that. And then we hit 65, we retire, and then we die probably 5 years later.
Right.
We're going to school being taught that. It translates into our work. And if you're not careful, that can be your whole life, is just on repeat. Oh, you get to take 2 weeks off a year if you're lucky. And then maybe you can, most of us who only get 2 weeks off just want to be still in her own home. So you might not even travel because that's not really enough time to do so sometimes. So I think that people, anyone, and that's including people who are homeless, this is including people who are more like vagabondish, that maybe society doesn't look at them in the best light. But I've always been very interested in who they are and how they got there, because honestly, most of them just they're walking in a different path than we are. They're not subscribing to everything that we've been taught. That's the safer route. And maybe it's led them down a scruffier road. Maybe it's led them down a less lucrative road. But I think that there's really something to those people who do step out of that norm, that indoctrinated lifestyle. And whether they've benefited from it or not is a separate thing. But I think that they're very strong to have the independent thinking to just do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Suge embodies that in everything that she is, and also is successful in her own right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also something we haven't talked about. There's a lot of success in some of the characters, and they're all female characters. Like, even Harpo has his success in his own little
In his little home that he built and turned into a bar.
There's a lot of empowerment, a lot of growth. Celie has a whole business. Her dad had a successful business, owned land, had a house. There's a lot of empowerment that comes in the book, and it just happens because they've worked hard, they've trusted themselves, they've led with their intuition, they've been free to do what they want to do. Just even Harpo being like, I'm going to take my house, I'm going to turn it into this. There is no hesitation to move forward and to just create something for yourself.
Right.
And I love that too. There's just, I don't know, there is a lot of oppression, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of explicit content. But I think given the right age group, this is a really great book.
We haven't even talked about the fact that Nettie goes to Africa. And I think that is probably one of my favorite parts of this book, because it's so easy to get literature out there that just pushes Black people into a slavery slot.
It's not that. It's a lot of joy.
There is abuse,
there's
but
so much
abuse is real in every race. You know what I mean? We all, like, you just talked about the Hispanic culture and their experience with abuse. I know personally that white people are not exempt from having abusive lifestyles, and really a lot of I would argue even the most violent lifestyles. I think most mass murderers are white men, right? So that's telling in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I loved that she not only did not make this book about slavery, which, I mean, slavery wasn't, I'm not saying it wasn't a prevalent topic in the early 1900s, but she didn't focus on white people and oppressing Black people. She focused on Black people, their lives, their growth. And she even threw in this wonderful part of Nettie going to Africa. And just Nettie even says there's kings and queens here.
Yeah.
We have a land. We come from that. So I loved this book for that reason specifically, because I think it's really easy for African American content to get pigeonholed into one sad slot when it was so much bigger.
It was so much more complex. Yeah. I really cannot. I am so sad that I hadn't read it before this.
I'm so happy that I got to read it for the first time and talk about it in this way.
I guess I'm not sad that I just read it. I'm happy that I read it now in this point in my life where I could really appreciate it. But it was great. It was
10 out of 10 recommend. If you can definitely take your time with some of the abusive parts, it does get better. And I just started a new job, and I've been much busier than I was before. So I exclusively listen to this book in my car or my truck, like audiobook wise. So I got the audiobook version that was narrated by the woman from Orange is the New Black.
Was it Poussey?
Samira Wiley. So yeah, I listened to the version that Samira Wiley had narrated. I thought
that's the one I did too.
Yeah, I thought she did an excellent job. In the beginning, it's It's a little harder to follow because she is really getting into character. She's probably method acting in that way, but
I followed along with the book, so it was a little bit easier to break it apart in terms
yeah,
of what letter I was on and stuff.
she did a great job. If you can, I know I always say it for my dyslexic homies out there, but for the rest of my bandits, my band baddies, my band babes, check out her version. She did a really good job. So I think one other character I'd like to talk about for a minute, we touched on earlier, is Sophia. I feel like in the beginning, she has a much stronger presence in the book. And then after she goes to jail, obviously she dips out. Just a little summary of kind of what happens to her. Celie meets her via Harpo, who her and Harpo fall in love when they're younger. They get married. Harpo makes her a house. She lives with him. We talked a little bit about the fact that Harpo kind of starts to abuse her because she's a really like independent minded person.
She doesn't take any shit.
She doesn't
and
take shit.
In the book, she's described as being like, what's the word? Not like thick, but
I guess
healthy.
She's like a healthy girl.
She's
right?
a healthy girl, and he's not as healthy.
so
It's funny in the book. I think I was on the couch next to you when I was reading this part, but I turned around and I was like, oh my God, he gets fucked up by his wife.
yeah, and then he eats more to try to like be the same size as her.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that character's spirit. I obviously didn't like what happened to her, but I think at that time period, that's probably a pretty accurate depiction of what would have happened during that incident where she gets put away in jail and beat up by the townspeople.
So to me, that's the wildest part, because I think you're right. I think it's 12 years total. So a normal person in those circumstances would have their spirit broken.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would be the same person. And yet when she comes back, both in the movie and in the book, she still has not lost her spirit. And she's so resilient.
It took her a minute to get it back, though.
Yeah,
It took her a
did.
minute.
But she still is who she is.
And that is a strong person who ultimately doesn't take shit from anyone, not even her husband, not the mayor. Mm-hmm. And she ends up getting reunited with her children later, which unfortunately she missed all of their lives, mostly their childhood, because the mayor's wife basically asked her if she wanted to be her maid. And she was like, nah. And the mayor,
hell nah.
Yeah. And then they end up having a more in-depth relationship than the movie throws out there. Because when she, the mayor's wife and her, because she ends up going to work for them because she gets out on good behavior. And then the mayor's wife, she teaches the mayor's wife how to drive a car. And then the mayor's wife is, oh, you probably need to go see your kids. You haven't seen them for years. So she goes and she drops Sophia off to go see her kids for a couple hours, like 45 minutes maybe.
Yeah. And doesn't she have a pretty long-standing relationship with one of the daughters?
Yeah, she ends up getting really close to the daughter that she takes care of, which happened a lot during that time.
It did.
And that's a story that didn't get addressed a lot, but that happens a lot where you have these minorities that go to work for white people. They get so close to the white people's kids and then they completely miss out on their own children's experience. And this was a court-appointed situation. Like, obviously, they made her do that, but that has been on repeat in most situations between Hispanic and Black people involving their servitude to white people, which is completely heartbreaking. So Sophia's story is actually the saddest to me. And then they have this weird little snippet where everybody tried to get Sophia out of jail because she was dwindling.
Yeah.
And then Squeaks goes to try to convince them basically to get her out.
Yes. I forgot about that.
And then Squeaks gets raped by her uncle.
Yeah.
Or her cousin or
some family member.
And then Harpo, she comes back and she's all disheveled. And Harpo's like, all right, my wife's in jail. My girlfriend's been raped. Like, it's all bad. Mm-hmm. So that was a really dark time period. As that period that Sophia got locked away was a really dark time period in the book. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a really important part because even though they didn't dwell on it because it's really about Celie, that is something that happened all the time. but I loved her character. I love the fact that Danielle Brooks, who also played Sophia on stage, reprised her role in the movie.
She was a really good pick for that.
I loved her in Orange is the New Black. I think I'm just a huge fan of her. She's such a strong woman. She has such a strong presence, and I had no idea that she could sing like that. Big ups to Sophia. She was a true gem of a character in that book. But can we talk a little bit about the drama between the movie?
Yeah. We don't really know what it is though. We know that Shug Avery is played by Taraji P. Henson.
Love her. We need just like a moment to absorb how much we love her.
So there are a lot of fantastic Black actresses.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gone through kind of these ebbs and flows of like strong, prominent female actresses that come out and then make a big splash and then they disappear. But in Black culture specifically, there has been this kind of theme where women will get popular and then they'll speak out about how there's a pay injustice for them. How even though there's a pay difference between men and women in Hollywood, the white women are still making more money than their people of color, whether it's Mexican. Really, Mexican actresses haven't even been on the fucking...
We're
working on it.
We're experiencing the first wave of them.
Yeah, but as long as there have been Black actresses, they've always said that they don't get paid enough. This version of The Color Purple was produced by... Hold on.
The producers are... let's see. Nope. That's the old one. Oh. It's still saying that Quincy Jones and Steven Spielberg were producing the second one for me. And Oprah Winfrey, of course. Fuck you, Oprah. And Scott Sanders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm getting to.
So it looks like they had their group of producers and Steven Spielberg still had a little stake in it.
But the thing here is that Oprah was involved in producing this. And there's been a lot of controversy and talk. And obviously, we don't know what the truth is. But...
we know what the truth is. There's no way.
She has not advocated and she has not helped open the door for the women behind her.
No.
And a lot of people gave shit to Monique when she was blackballed because she was talking about how she wasn't getting paid enough.
And I love Monique. I think she's one of the smartest people alive, honestly.
And now we're seeing Taraji P. Henson, who anything that she touches. When I saw that she was involved in the movie,
I was stoked.
And I was halfway through the book. I was like, there's no other character she's going to be other than Shug.
Completely.
There's absolutely no other character. She's going to be incredible actress, well-versed, musically. I'm not even putting words together that do her justice.
If you've seen her in anything, you know that
she's magnetic.
She is everything.
She's literally magnetic. She is the definition of star quality magnetism. She's smart.
Got that
she's talented.
Factor.
She's well-spoken. She oozes like royalty to me.
No, absolutely. She is beautiful. She is confident. She is articulate. She is talented. She can sing, which again, I didn't even know that. Like she just has a presence that cannot be duplicated.
And there were analysis of videos of her doing press with Oprah and she looks uncomfortable. And then she did an interview and she's talking about how every single film she's had to do, she's had to prove herself. The book is set in the 1920s, right?
Yeah, like the early.
Right.
Yeah. So, in the beginning, it's all throughout the 1900s, but it starts early, yeah.
So we're in 2024 now, and we're still having the discussion about how Black artists or people of color in general are not getting paid for the work that they do, for the effort that they put, for the artistic value that they add to the world, especially on such an important story. And then to know that Oprah was one of the producers. Honestly, we talked about Oprah during the Maui fires when we talked about that back over the summer. Fuck Oprah.
No, fuck Oprah. We do know what happened because Taraji outlines it. She said that she almost did not take on the project. She almost turned it down because nobody was meeting her monetary requests. And then she digs a little deeper into the interviews and, you know, she starts to cry because she's like, I need to talk about this because she's surrounded by her cast members. And she's, we need to talk about this because if I don't talk about this, it's a disservice to the women around me who are coming in behind me. So she's very aware of the fact that there's such an indiscrepancy in pay, not only between men and women, but between white women and black women. And again, we are not even touching on Hispanic women who have not even gotten the spotlight yet in that scenario. I think Jenna Ortega is like a young Hispanic voice that's coming out, but other than that, we don't have a lot of representation other than fucking J-Lo and a few other key actresses that are mostly supporting roles. So these women, Taraji's a big name. She's a big actress, and she's not the only one. What's the woman's name that was in the Warrior movie?
Oh, Viola Davis.
So Viola
Davis is another one.
She's also speaking out on this subject.
Octavia Spencer has come out and said it as well.
Right?
Octavia Spencer was in, what was the one with Emma Stone? The Help.
Oh.
She was in The Help, and she's been in a bunch of films.
Yeah, we know the story, and the scandal part about it is that, I don't know, you can say what you want, conspiracy theory, I don't give a shit. Oprah's not a good person.
Yeah.
Maybe she was at one point in her career, but she's been years and years drinking the sauce, and honestly, she lost me when I saw those pictures of her and fucking Weinstein.
Yeah.
All cuddled up together and fucking nibbling each other's ear and shit. So I 150% believe that she is not doing any of these black female actresses any justice. I was really disappointed that she still had producing rights in this movie. And if there's anything wrong with the movie, it's the fact that Oprah Winfrey had a hand in producing it. Because these women deserve, this movie's going to bring in a lot of money. It's already being talked about. It'll probably be in like award ceremonies. Just because the musical numbers, the talent that was out there, it's going to get recognized in some way. And I'm so sad and I'm so sick and tired of these phenomenal. Viola Davis is known as the fucking Black Meryl Streep, right? They had the same, she says it in interviews, they had her, Meryl Streep, other classical. They had very similar like roads to fame. And they still have to negotiate contracts where they have to include their team, meaning their makeup team and stuff like that.
Right, because they can't.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to pay them.
Yeah.
So that's the issue that I loved the movie and what they did with it, all good things. But as far as the drama behind it, I really fucking hope that this time, when a black female actress is calling out injustice in the industry, that we're fucking listening. Because if we lose a Taraji, she could have not been on this project due to monetary lack of funding that needed to just keep her alive. She's a huge deal and she needs to be paid as such.
Taraji P. Henson has been nominated for an Academy Award. She did not win it. She has been nominated for a Golden Globe and won it for her role as Cookie Lion in Empire. She's proven her ability, her talent, her worth, and yet she has said it and continues to say it, that no matter what she's done, no matter what awards she has under her belt, she still has to prove it every single time she goes to a negotiation table. And that shouldn't just be like, it just shouldn't be like that. No,
they should be trying to woo her to get on a project. Hidden Figures, amazing.
She's on Hidden Figures.
You know what I mean?
So is Octavia Spencer.
It's gross. And I know that's not directly in correlation to the book, but this is a part we're talking about.
She's been nominated for 3 Emmys.
Jesus. We're talking about African-American women, black women, who have undergone hundreds of years of abuse in America. And now we can't even we're not paying them what they're worth. A shame. Like,
Right.
where's that lady that's in fucking the show? Shame.
Oh,
Shame.
Cersei Lannister.
I fucking wish I had that woman in my back pocket to activate because there's so many times where her voice comes in my head.
Well, it's technically the nun.
The nun behind her.
Yeah.
Shame. And just running through.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do with America when it comes to this subject or in many subjects. We need to have that lady following behind America with the rest of the world watching, yelling shame and a bell.
Yeah.
In this particular situation, 150%. So whatever you take from this book, we've told you all the thoughts and feelings that it inspired within us. But as far as how it's translating across the world through Hollywood, through musicals, things like that.
Like, part of me didn't want to watch it because I didn't want to support Oprah.
And I'm, again, as soon as I saw Oprah with Weinstein, I was like, that's it. Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. You shouldn't be cuddled up to that man. Fuck Oprah. And if you have any inclination to make a difference, start supporting the minorities in Hollywood. Start ruthlessly supporting the Tarajis. Start ruthlessly supporting the Viola Davises. Start backing up the Danielle Brooks. Start backing up the Jenna Ortegas. And there's so many other names out there that people...
And what was her name? The girl from Scream that got fired for being pro-Palestinian? Melissa something.
Yeah.
And then Jenna Ortega quit afterwards as a support.
Or allegedly, they didn't confirm it, but she quit suspiciously close afterwards.
Melissa Barrera, who's a Mexican-American artist.
And we need so many more Mexican-American talent out there. We need Puerto Rican talent out there. We need let's cross this, any minorities. We need more Asian actors and actresses. So
it was a huge deal that last year, Michelle Yeoh won.
Oh, for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
That was a huge deal.
It was my favorite movie the whole year.
And she was incredible in it.
And she's always been like that.
Yes, she has.
She's always brought talent. Now, there's a lot of actresses out there that are white actresses, and I'm not trying to take anything from anyone
I love
else.
Emma Stone. I think Emma Stone's a really great actress.
We can talk about great white actresses.
Can we talk about Margot Robbie for a second? Because I think...
Ooh, Barbie movie.
And it's been so much more than that. I've grown to love her so much because of how much of an advocate she is for women.
Yes.
And she's intentionally taken because she's gorgeous. Literally, I love that part in the movie where they're like, we understand that she's not the one to get this message across when I feel ugly.
No, but it is, because that's just the female experience.
But this isn't to take away from white actresses, but they've just had the spotlight for so long. And it really is so nice to see. I think Viola Davis is one of my favorite actresses, but
She's
I also
amazing.
watched her on How to Get Away with Murder. And I was obsessed with her. And Kerry Washington and Scandal. There's just such a range of actresses who are fucking incredible. And it's just such a disservice that we're doing to ourselves by not paying these actresses with their worth.
Let's let them work. Let's let them work and thrive so we can see more of them.
And so that they can, unlike Oprah, fucking hold the door open and help carry people through.
Oprah's dark now. She's dark.
This has been an Oprah bashing.
And I'll bash her again. I'll bash her until she starts doing right by people. And that's not allegedly not helping the people of Maui and going and fucking handing out pillows from Costco. Not enough. And then asking the rest of us for money to support Maui. Not enough, Oprah. Be better.
Right.
And then after we call her out on it, she's fucking shaming us all and saying that social media is rough out there. No, you're rough out there, Oprah. Fuck you. But I don't know. I think that might wrap it up.
I think that wraps it up for today, though. Right?
Yeah. So if ruthlessly and violently support the violently support. I'm saying, and I'm not saying go hurt somebody, but I'm saying with everything that you can do, go out there and support the people that deserve it. And especially show up for the minorities.
There's something that we did this year that we did it was twofold, at least for me. We didn't really buy a lot of gifts for the holiday season. We were in deep boycotting mode. Fuck Starbucks. Fuck the corporations. And honestly, it's exhausting to try to go to Sephora and be like, okay, let me take out my app and see what I can buy today.
Right.
Because the company. So in lieu of that, we basically had experiences this year. And I'm really happy with that. But I would love nothing more than to watch this country evolve into a country where we speak collectively where we use our voice collectively and our dollars collectively to support the things, the people, the organizations that are doing good in the world. Because sometimes, and today's January 1st, last year was really heavy. There was a lot of darkness in last year, and I'm not sure what this year is going to look like. We're in an election year. Things are about to get real spicy up in this
Which,
place.
by the way, just a shout out. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
How dare you?
not just the presidency, but like 400 plus seats are up for re-election this year. Keep that in mind. Just vote for
Register to vote.
Register to vote. Vote for the people who are going to back up the policies that you want. Don't focus on the attention. Focus on the policies. Please look it up.
Please take a day, take a couple of hours. I know it sounds exhausting, but it's not. It's something that I've been doing for years. You grab your ballot, you sit down with a cup of coffee or a cup of matcha, whatever the fuck you want, and you just look through all of your candidates and all of your options. They send you a sample ballot for a reason. Write all over that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Make notes for yourself and vote, because it's what you've got to do. And if this country wants to ban boycotting, fine. But until it's really taken away from us, use your voice in every way that you can. Vote with your money. Pay attention to where you're putting your money. I know that nothing frustrates me more than seeing people going to Starbucks and being like, I just can't give up my caramel and frappuccino or whatever the fuck. That's fine. You don't want to do it. I'm not going to shame people for it, but also your unwillingness to be inconvenienced for a quick coffee, to me, is not justified for all of the people that are losing their lives. Right. And I know that Starbucks is not the sole enemy here.
No.
But we can collectively go company by company.
Right.
And start to make our voices heard.
The revolution's going to be monetary, guys. So pick your poison is all I'm saying. Like, whatever you're supporting with your money, that's what's going to build the America in the future, is what we're saying.
Thank you so much for being here with us today, guys. This was a really fun book. I did not expect it to be so like full-bodied, especially with how aggressively it started, and how hard it was to get through the first couple of letters. But I came out on the other end really happy that I read it. I'm so obsessed with the characters. I love how well-rounded it was. I love the joy that was still mixed in, even though there was an underlying complete acknowledgement of the trauma and the lived experience of people of color in that time period. And yet in that, we still found joy. Yeah.
And the multifaceted experience of the characters will come through when you're reading it. I guarantee you'll have a wonderful experience. If you haven't read it already, Alice Walker's a boss.
I'm not saying don't watch the movie. I'm not saying that. But 100% read the book.
Yeah, read the book. And just a little tidbit for me. Again, like I stated, I started a new job. So we have not been exactly on schedule with uploading. Many apologies. I've got a few more weeks of training left, and then I'll have a little bit more time to get our structure back. So we're doing the best we can. We love you.
We're moving.
And we're moving. We're going to be moving to the San Diego area, so it's going to be all good things.
Yay.
Yay.
Pray for us that we don't get washed away as the tide comes up higher, and I have a genuine fear that we're going to be caught in a tsunami. And yet, as I do that, I try also to be optimistic because Jeanna is so excited. But low-key, every single day, I'm like, let's be at least 30 miles from the shore so that if a fucking tsunami comes, I'm at least not just a little tidbit about my mind.
Okay, so do that.
Keep us in your thoughts and prayers.
And just know that there's more structure to come. We probably will be launching a second podcast here pretty soon in the coming months. We'll keep you updated. But as always, support where you can, when you can. We love you guys so much.
Love you. Bye. And that brings us to the end of another episode. If you found this discussion insightful and thought-provoking, don't forget to show your support. You can find all the links and references mentioned in today's episode in the description down below. Whether you're looking for articles, books, or additional resources to explore, we've got you covered.
And if you haven't already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to us. It's the best way to stay connected and engaged. It gets our books out there into the places where maybe they might not be reachable because they are banned.
And if you're really passionate about what we're doing and you want to take your support to the next level, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page.
You'll be gaining access to exclusive bonus content, which I don't post to the regular platforms. And you'll even have the opportunity to vote for the next book that we read and suggestions for topics and future episodes. Thanks again for tuning in to the Band Together podcast. You can follow us on TikTok. Your feedback and involvement make this podcast possible. So keep reading between the lines.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.